Hello, this is Pick, and welcome to the final episode of my guide for FTB Sky's Expert Mode. The final normal episode anyway. There are still other things I'll cover in own individual videos. The first thing I'd like to cover is a mistake I made regarding the industrial turbine. It turns out that I made way too many ultramagnetic coils. Apparently you only need a few. So what I did was I swapped a number of them out for saturating condensers. What this will do is recondense some of the steam made by the turbine as water. This aids with all the water troubles we've been having trying to overclock the burn rate of both the fission and fusion reactors, though it's more helpful for the fusion than the fission. I made a platform in the middle of nowhere. This is just so I'll have a nice, not laggy place to work for a few different things that I'm doing for the endgame. I say that and I'll still be sitting in the main base for most of the episode, but you know. But how am I going to get all of my resources over here? There's clearly no connection to my EE network. This is where the quantum bridge comes in. Remember that thing we built way back when with the quantum assembler and how I put a singularity in that and my terminal to have access to it anywhere? You could do the same thing between two quantum link chamber bridges. This will allow access to your AE network from far across the map. You'll need to have power provided to both sides, and you'll also need to make sure that once again, the matching singularity is put inside each link chamber. But once you hook it up with the cable and provide the other side with the energy it needs, it should start working. However, I'd like a few more channels over there anyway. Not that I'll end up using them, but good to show it off. This is where a P2P network comes in handy. This is how a lot of people typically deal with their channel issues. What you do is you have a quote-unquote main line for all of your channels, and then P2P tunnels, which allow more channels to be sent across the network with less cabling. It's like a portal for your cables, I guess, as long as they go along a channel on a line. You'll also need a memory card. Shift right-click the sender and right-click the receiver, and it will link the two together. Then you simply have to have a cable going into that P2P tunnel that's not the cable it's sitting on. Obviously, if it were the cable it was sitting on, it wouldn't be doing a very good job at moving channels when it's already moving the channels through the cable. For the sake of clarity, I'll explain to you that you have to put it on a small cable, and then that will allow it to connect to the main network, and the green is getting teleported and the cyan is not. So I'm moving all 32 of green's channels through the cyan network, over the quantum bridge, and out to the other side at that far off platform. This allows me to send 64 channels through instead of 32, minus whatever's used to make the P2P tunnel and quantum bridge work, of course. Before I go to all of the final quests, I'm going to go through all of the other quests and complete them, such as this portable QIO dashboard that we definitely need right now, because I definitely don't have this universal terminal that does exactly what it does but better. I guess the QIO dashboard doesn't use power or whatever. Most of these crafts aren't interesting, so I'm just not going to show them. It's a laundry list of things to do. If there's something important, I'll come back. I require unstable ingots. In order to make unstable ingots, I'm going to need to activate a division sign. To do that, put down an array of dirt, then place down an enchanting table and surround that with a ring of redstone dust. You'll need to prepare a sacrifice, so get a passive mob. Then, at midnight, kill the mob and it will activate your division sign. To make unstable ingots with this division sign, you're going to need to make a regular crafting table. Then, get some diamonds and some iron, and you'll need to craft them together quickly in order to make them into whatever you're going to craft. If that's blocks, you're going to need to do it with blocks, you know? Now, in the original extra utilities, they didn't even stack and you had less time to do it, but I think you have about 10 seconds here, which is more than enough. Very different from the days of old. You'll probably want to upgrade to a stable division sigil as soon as possible. That way you don't have to worry about exploding ingots. Another thing I need and don't have is Gaiasteel. This is a good excuse to make the Gaia Agglomeration plate. It's like the Terra Agglomeration plate, but better. It's constructed in much of the same way, so you just have to replace a bunch of components instead of making something new, and the pattern provider will work identically to how it did before. You will need to make sure you're properly managing your item collectors though. You don't want it picking up things at the wrong step. Or you could just move to the mechanical versions of these things, except for the Gaia plate. I don't think that has one. A nice perk of this is that it makes Gaiasteel much more efficiently. I believe it uses a quarter of the mana it used before. Now that same cost of half a mana pool goes to making Gaiasteel ingots. But you need a lot less of them. Your mana can probably keep up if you're not using functional flowers for much else. Alright, let's talk about bee genetics real quick. I'm not going to bother interacting with the mechanic, but I will at least tell you how to do it since I have to make some bee genetic material anyway. If you crush a bee in a bottler, it will create a bottle of its genetic material. This is done by putting a piston above a bottler and then putting a bee in the center and sandwiching it with the piston. You can then separate this genetic material out into each of its individual stat components. You know, productivity, whether it's available during the day or night, etc. You can also obtain bee genetics using the Pokey Pokey Gene Sampler upgrade for your beehives. If you combine enough of a particular trait with a honey treat, you can feed the bee to override that trait. For example, if you were to make a honey treat with high productivity, you could give a bee with low productivity the high productivity, but you need to make sure that you max out the chance or there's a fail chance on it. Simply increase the chance further by adding more vials with that particular trait to the honey treat. And that does it for all the regular quests. Now all that's left is the overpowered quest line. There are a few lingering categories that seem to refuse to complete, but I completed all the quests in them, so I'm done with them. So let's get started on these overpowered quests, shall we? First, I'm going to take care of all the ones that require an amount of power. Simply set the task screen to each of these quests and it will complete them regardless of if you have them unlocked or not. So I'd recommend just going through them all and doing them. Now I need a lot of honey. If you've been farming your bees very consistently, this shouldn't take you too long. If you're like me and you haven't really been very vigilant with making your bees make honey, then I guess you're gonna have to wait a little bit. I at least have most of it. I have like 70 buckets worth of honey in honeycombs and bottles right now, but I will need to speed up those last 30. The fabrication matrix can process honeycombs without having to use the multi-block, so I can just use the thing I had before, speed it up a bit, you know. You can also centrifuge normal honeycombs in the centrifugal separator to get more honey out of those. You can also invest in some productivity upgrades. They'll increase the production output of bees in a given beehive by 140%, which is a decent upgrade, though it does require some honey to get off the ground, so maybe do that before processing all of your honey if you want to make use of those. Remember, time torches are your friend. 1 down, or I guess 2 down, 23 to go. Let's see, we need a full mana tablet. Well, that isn't that hard. I can just fill a mana tablet and that's taken care of, I guess. I'll also need some budding amethyst, okay. Just need to make another alchemy catalyst since I used the other one to make a terra catalyst that I used a grand total of once. I should also warn you that you are going to require a lot of precision mechanisms, but you can auto-craft those in the Quantum Assembler, so no biggie. I think you'll need like 800 or so to completely finish all of the quests, so just make 1,000 and call it a day. A lot of these earlier ones are just kind of fetch quests, so to speak, so the tasks aren't particularly interesting or difficult. The later ones can sometimes have issues if you don't have the infrastructure to make them though, and I'll be going over those as we get to them. Once per row, you'll also have to make a few different foods from Farmer's Delight. They get a little more complex as you go, but they're all just stuff you make in the cooking pot. You can always speed that up with the temporal pouch as well. And with that, I guess that's another thing down. Woo, let's keep going. For this next quest, I have basically everything I need already stocked up in the system. Isn't that convenient? It's almost like auto-crafting will help a lot. Also, the rewards for these quests tend to be pretty good most of the time. You'll get a large variety of items that can help you along, as well as some creative items too. They definitely come in handy even when you're like me and have pretty good infrastructure. That infrastructure won't hold up forever. The reward for this quest is also pretty good. Some ultimate induction cells and providers, which just means I can greatly increase the storage capacity of my induction matrix. So, in essence, when I start making a lot of power again, I can store a lot of it. This will definitely come in handy in the event I have a brownout. Definitely won't have any of those in the future. Oh wow, would you look at that? I have all of this latex I need already. Even if I didn't, I could just speed up the fluid extractors until I get the 100 buckets I need. Could also shove some add-ons into them to make them faster. Not like they'll run out of acacia wood anytime soon. Obviously, I'm not going to show every little minutia that I do for these quests, but I'll at least organize all of them so you have a nice timestamp to go to for each one. That's just not a guarantee that the segment's going to be very long or meaningful. I'll need some insightful crystals next. A whole lot of them. So, how do I do that? Well, I need a bunch of bottles of enchanting. I could send a bunch of bottles through the Energizer and do it that way, but I think it's much easier to just use the bottler. All I need to do is hook up some of that liquid essence I was making from the mob crusher, and put it through the bottler with some bottles, of course. And there you go, bottles of enchanting. That means I can craft all those insightful crystals. The other component of note here is going to be pink slime ingots. I needed to look at a pig and a sheep for a quest that I just never did, because I never had either spawn, so I ended up making some delightful dirt to do that. It's much like the dreadful dirt. You get the feed from the wandering trader, feed it to a chicken, and it explodes into a golden egg. Then place it down and get a 5x5 delightful dirt. Delightful dirt disappears over time. There's a 1 in 20 chance of that happening every time it spawns a mob. Or maybe every time it spawns grass as well, I don't remember. In any case, you could use that to get pink slime. It's one of the possible paths. In the end though, it's probably much easier to just use the mob duplicator to make a cow or something and get all of your pink slime that way. Reminder that hostile mobs generate liquid meat, passive mobs generate pink slime at a higher rate. All you gotta do to make pink slime ingots is put them through the dissolution chamber with some iron and gold. So, what's next? Ah yes, a bunch of charged certus that I already have. Some food that's not difficult to make, some precision mechanisms that are not hard to make either, and an energy cube. Okay. The hoglin is the hardest part of this to make, and that's just because I don't have everything. Looks like I'll need some more types of fungus and roots. Well, I'll use the manual crank again, why not? Just have to hunt some mushrooms to make some fungus, as well as making some nylium so I can grow crimson roots on it like grass, and pick those up with shears. The last thing I need is ham from hoglins. This is gotten by killing a hoglin with a knife. Specifically a knife. You'll also have to make sure you kill the hoglin before it becomes a zoglin, because it's in the overworld or whatever. You should be able to do enough damage to kill it, especially with that golden gauntlet artifact or whatever it's called. The one that increases your damage. For the next one, I just need some signalum ingots. Of course, that isn't very difficult when I have them automatically requested, so that's that out of the way. After that, I'll need an advanced machine frame, which I happen to already have. Visiting a village, okay, I've done that. And a whole bunch of blaze cake. Well, I don't have any blaze cakes on me, but I guess I could quickly take care of that. Actually, I might have blaze cakes from piglin bartering, but let's do it the long way instead, huh? Cinder flour is already obtained via sifting. I'm also already making sugar and eggs from the cake farm. So, by borrowing a stack of each, or well, I guess 4 stacks of eggs technically, by throwing all of that into a filtered basin under a mechanical press, it'll turn them all into blaze cake bases. Then all you gotta do is put them under a spout of lava, and out comes all those blaze cakes. People say I talk kind of fast, and I mean, I do understand that I talk fast, but at the same time, I don't like padding the video, because these videos are long enough. You know it's bad when I have to go through almost my entire stash of background music in a single video. Well, I say my stash, it's the Dr. Stone soundtrack. Oh, also, you can speed up the mechanical press with the temporal pouch if you really want to do that. It won't make it consume extra stress units. Let's see, next up is ether gas. Well, I have a lot of that stocked already, thankfully. Also, my wither mysteriously died somehow, so, there's that. It's not radiation though, because the cows that are closer to the radiation site where things explode are fine. Anyway, if for some reason you need more ether gas, simply put the fluid laser base on top of the wither, as long as it's still able to collect it, and then have 4 laser drills going into it. Actually, you could get more than 4, but I don't think that's really necessary. Remember, 4 was enough for me to get all of the oil I ever needed for the entire mod pack. Anyway, hopping into the next quest. For some reason this dash plate task is already completed. I don't know why, but it's not like I can't make 128 dash plates super easily. Then I need swift alloy, which I can make a lot of easily. And then I'll also need some Terrasteel, which, again, I can auto-craft. You see where I'm going with this? A lot of this is just nothing quests. Quests that I can do in my sleep. The reward is somewhat noteworthy, though. It's a created mana pool. This basically means all of your throughput issues are a thing of the past as far as mana production goes. You can automatically produce as much mana as you want and just send it to all the other mana pools. So while I'm not going to have you sit and wait and watch as all of these ingots come through, you can know that the reward is at least worthwhile. Because of how nothing that other quest is, how about we do the next one too? Well, I have a whole lot of blaze rods already, so I guess we have that. Same with nether stars, actually. That just leaves crying obsidian. Now, you could make it in the antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer, but I don't really want to waste antimatter on crying obsidian, so I'm just going to have the piglins be auto-bartered with until we finally get what we want. It'll give me enough crying obsidian eventually. You just have to sift through all of the junk that you get alongside it. Okay, Crystallized Amber and Flawless Certus. Well, Flawless Certus is just charged Certus and Certus blocks and thrown into water, and then put through the enrichment chamber. In other words, way too easy. The Amber is maybe slightly annoying. What I think I'll do is I'll just upgrade the Fisher and have it automatically import what it gets into the system. It's gonna flood the system with fishing rods, but you know, who cares? You see, I had to make a supermassive QIO drive to complete those normal quests, so not only did I have to wait for another antimatter pellet, oh don't worry, we're gonna get there. This isn't the end of antimatter. But in the process, I got the supermassive QIO drive, which can store another 1024 items, times 8, because I can do math off the top of my head, obviously. And so because of that, I can just store everything the Marine Fisher picks up. That gives me the fire coal I need for the amber. Just have to put some lava into a super cooler. I think I'll mooch off of the one I'm using for the dark fireballs. I do have to switch which one I'm using constantly because I'm just keeping them filled with whatever product, but, you know. Actually, I'm just mooching off the pattern provider. I have a separate super cooler that just has lava in it, but I have to make sure they don't accidentally auto-craft into each other. You know, a bunch of stuff that's really not necessary to talk about. Okay, next up I'll need some lumium. Not too difficult. I'm also going to require arcane sands. Alright, that's going to be a little tricky to get, but not too difficult. You can't actually salvage your apotheosis gear to get all of those affix items. No Godforged pearls or arcane sands, unfortunately. This means I'm going to have to get arcane sands by breaking down Godforged pearls. Thankfully, I have a supply of them from loot bees. You might want to turn loot bees back on at this point if you need more. There is another way to get these items though. You can make an Apothec boss gate and that will summon special mobs that are bosses and you'll be able to beat them and get some Godforged pearls as a reward. So as long as you have at least a few, you should be able to get off the ground. It's 6 arcane sands and 2 Godforged pearls per. And you can salvage Godforged pearls to get arcane sands. Alright, let's summon that Apothec boss. Oh, gave me a blizz. Alright, well let's just kill it. Wait, where is it going? Oh no, come back you stupid blizz. Ugh. Well, that was a waste of some Godforged pearls and arcane sands. I think I'm gonna give myself a do-over on that one. I didn't realize that such a thing was going to happen. Okay, take 2. I've made a cage, so no blizzes will be able to escape to the sky. And because of my lovely mecha suit, I'm in no danger of dying to any of these mobs, no matter how dangerous they are. It's just fighting mobs in a cage. What's possibly interesting about that? Wait, I'm not strong enough to beat round 3. My weapons just aren't good enough at dealing damage. That's annoying. I won't give myself a do-over on this one. Though I guess that means at this point that I got something from this gate, but not everything. Better that it happened when it did, I suppose. I guess we're taking a little bit of a detour from the quest book here. I need a sword that's going to deal a whole lot of damage. But what options are there? Well, I think the easiest super strong one I can make is the Vitalic Blade. The main things I'm going to need are a lot of hearts and a lot of apples. Hearts come from fighting bosses. However, with insufficient weaponry, bosses take a while. So I'll fight a few withers to get the yellow hearts I need to start boosting the damage, and then once it's strong enough I'll switch to wardens, which drop blue hearts, which are 81 times better than yellow hearts for getting the lower tiers. Well, the point being that the blue hearts are better, the exact math is a little off. And I do still have a large surplus of red hearts. Point being, farm up a whole bunch of apples, you can use the phytogenic insulator if that's what works for you, and just start grinding out those heart canisters. So, once you've crafted your Vitality Blade, shift right click and it will open the menu that shows the heart canisters it can hold. Much like the heart amulet that you wear, this also stores 10 of each heart canister inside of it. Its effects are additive, so adding in a blue heart canister will not do any more than a red heart canister would. I plan on filling it up all the way. It will do a total of 88 damage per hit. Note that you cannot enchant it though, so be warned. Not that you'd need to anyway. Even sharpness 10 is what, maybe like 10 extra hearts on top of the 88 you're already doing? Let's try that boss gate again, shall we? Look how fast this is going. I'm doing so much damage per hit. So much damage and nothing will be able to stop me. Why do I have to wait so long for the next wave to spawn? Hurry up and give me the next thing I can kill already. Any second now. Alright, there it is. And now I can kill... What? Are you kidding me? It gave me the only mob in the game that this sword wouldn't be able to just instantly destroy. What luck is that? After having to consult the Tropicraft wiki, I've discovered that you can only kill these things with a pickaxe. A vanilla pickaxe. So special modded pickaxes don't work, and the mecha tool also doesn't work. I had to get a netherite pickaxe just to kill this thing. It's a good thing I got all those loot pickaxes in storage. I'll be lucky to even kill this thing in time, jeez. I don't want to imagine killing one of these on the third wave. Well, whatever. Now I can get my Godforged Pearls, Arcane Sands, and whatever else. Now I need a big mana storage drive. A 256k. Well, I can already auto-craft those 256k components, and then I just need a bunch of miscellaneous things, like a 256k housing. That requires unstable plates, so I can make some unstable ingots, turn them into plates, that's taken care of. Way back when I set up auto-crafting for Gaiasteel processors, looks like that's coming in handy here, and I'll just let that craft and be done with it. I also think it's about time to upgrade the processing of fissile fuel. Believe me when I say you're gonna want a lot of it. So much so that even the 2 fabrication matrices I have going aren't going to be enough in the end. But again, we'll get there when we get there. I'm just doing a little bit of extra work preemptively. This also takes a little bit of the stress off the main one used for auto-crafting. The reward this time is a creative mana cell. So if you didn't have enough infinite mana before, now you should definitely have enough infinite mana. Note that this is restricted to your ME network. I'll get into how to use it in a little while. Alright, time to make some runes. You can get gem dust by salvaging gems in the gem cutting table, and an infused hell shelf is something we've already made. While I do know how to automate the runic altar with a bunch of fancy pants shenanigans, I'm just going to use the mechanical runic altar instead this time. You'll need to hook a pattern provider up to it, as it's basically just a single block machine that looks kinda funny. It doesn't automatically connect to the Applied Energistics network, but you are going to have to provide it with an export of living rock. In addition, you're going to need to supply it with mana. You can't directly feed it mana from your Applied Energistics system, so you'll want to put down a Fluix mana pool instead. This can provide your entire AE network worth of mana in the single block. Then you can connect the 2 up with sparks and it'll automatically feed the Fluix mana pool. As long as you use augments to direct the transfer direction, of course. Now, you only need 16 of each rune, which means really you only need 8 of each of the ElementalCraft runes. So that's why I completely automated them, of course. Something that probably would have taken less time to do manually is just something I decided to automate. So, how does this behemoth work? It's actually not too complicated. This isn't actually its final form either. It has a couple of flaws, and I'll go over the fixes when I get to going over the fixes and fix it, of course. The general idea, though, is that these pattern providers are putting item inputs into the rune inscribers, and then we have these things called modular routers. I didn't really use modular routers in the rest of the playthrough, but we're using them here. So these things take modules, and that determines what it does. An activation module will do clicking. By putting the rune inscription tool in the buffer, and having the activation module click on the rune inscriber, it will automatically do the clicking once the recipe is on. It does waste a little bit of the durability, so I'd recommend enchanting them with Unbreaking if you're serious about automation. You'll also have to define which face of the router is getting activated from. I'm then using another modular router with sending and receiving capabilities. Because I need an item inside the modular router that's clicking, I can't use one for everything. I could probably use one for all of the item input and output, but So TLDR, I'm just using filtered input and output with sender and receiver modules. It only takes the runes out and only puts the runes into the pattern provider. Of course, you're going to need a supply of elements, but yeah, generally this is what's going on. I should also mention that you need tier 2 senders and receivers to work on an offset, otherwise it has to be touching the router itself. Simply shift right click the inventory you want it to send or receive to, respectively. I was getting an error where the pattern providers were messing up the inputs. Also, just for clarification, I added a gem creation thing to each element. But to fix this, you simply have to make a buffer barrel, and then use the ordered sorter to make sure all of the items are inputted properly. Of course, you're going to need to redefine all of your senders and receivers, at least I did. But yeah, just make sure they're sending and receiving to the correct inventories. And other than that, this should be good to go. Now, I'm also going to need a supply of white rock to manage these runes. Could I just craft a few stacks and have enough for the rest of the pack? Of course! Am I gonna do that? No! Let's automate it! So, Applied Energistics has these things called Formation Planes and Annihilation Planes. One takes blocks from the network and places them down, the other breaks blocks and puts them into the network. However, it doesn't just work from the main system. We're gonna need to use something called a subnetwork. The subnetwork's going to need its own power supply, as well as its own set inventories. It can't directly connect to the main network. So, what we're gonna have to do is connect it via storage bus. So, I guess I'll tear this down and make them into subnetworks and come back. In order to generate a whitelisting effect, I require a partition cell. So I prepared a 1K ME cell, and I'll put that inside an ME chest. By partitioning it, that's basically filtering it, I can ensure that only white rock is imported into the system. Then I simply take it back out with a storage bus. You could also use an importer if you'd like. As I said, the subnet does need its own power source, but it can't connect to the main network. It also doesn't use any of the channels from the main network. Obviously, I'm just going to force this to run faster with my temporal pouch, so we don't have to sit here and wait and watch it convert. I mean, you can't even watch it convert because I have the particles turned off. The reason the Annihilation Planes aren't breaking the Blackstone is because it has nowhere to put them. It only has room for white rock and nothing else. Something to note is that it also doesn't work properly with the Blackstone because it doesn't just automatically take from what's already in the system. This means I'm inevitably going to have to set up another subnetwork. By exporting Blackstone into a chest and re-importing it into the system, it will place it properly. Also, I don't know if I've shown this off before, but cable anchors can be used to stop cables from connecting to each other. You'll have to do it on every face where they touch though. One last note about subnetworks is that without an ME controller, you're restricted to just 8 channels. By the way, while I craft up all of these items for these quests, did you know that when I went through every single quest and such, I had to craft an entire second tier 2 rocket, I mean jet suit. It's literally the same cost more or less, without the nose cone and the fins. I also crafted a separate dash engine to make a moon rover, that I don't need either. For all the fun I've had in this pack, that was definitely an annoying waste of time. There's not even anything to do with the moon rover, and the jet suit is outclassed as soon as you can make it. For some reason, detection of visiting a nether village doesn't work, so in order to deal with that, I guess I'll have to force complete the quest. Oh well, not every quest works properly, I suppose. I'll have to see about getting that fixed. Obviously, I've visited another village before, so it should work. Got some pretty good rewards from this quest too. One was a creative energy cell for Applied Energistics. This only powers the ME network, but it basically stops it from ever having a brownout, so that's cool. The other reward is creative element sources, so now I don't have to worry about generating ElementalCraft elements for whatever crafts are remaining, like the very large quantity of Firite ingots I'm going to need. So that's good timing. Oh, and I guess I'll need 100 buckets of liquid DT fuel. Well, I have plenty of DT fuel, so let's get that done. I guess I never quite showed how to put upgrades into ElementalCraft machines. Simply shift right click it with a rune and it will apply that rune to the machine. It will consume the rune though, so you'll have to make one for any machine you want to add it to. By the way, I upgraded the energizing orb setup to have spirited level energizing rods. I did have a cable mishap with vein mining. Oops, as they say. But this seems to more than handle everything. I'm pretty much set for any future energizing orb endeavors. Even now, there's a large element of click autocraft click for these things, and I have it all ready to go pretty much, it's just a lot of waiting. Not an awful amount most of the time though. I've started running Ender Dragon Predictions. This will both provide me with that end prediction matter that I need, as well as Dragon's Breaths. Remember that you can temporal pouch the simulation chamber to get loot quicker. I have nothing else to use it on, so why not use as much of it as I need? Or what I should say is I have way more time in this pouch than I'm going to need to finish the mod pack. To infuse Dragon's Breath, you don't need too much. You just need to modify your setup a little bit from when you infused the charm if you did that. I simply re-added some of my glowing hell shelves to match the quanta and arcana things it needed. And you can always tweak it a bit with candles. Each one gives 3, but you need 100, so you're gonna have to enchant 34 of them. This does mean you're gonna need a good amount of levels, but you probably have plenty of experience at this stage. Or if you're like me, you have enough experience rewards to get you past the threshold. Barely, but enough. Now to make those end fibers, or should I say the blaze fibers that you need to make the end fibers, I've borrowed the fluid source link and lava setup, and that should provide enough source here to make all of these fibers. Put on a hopper, put on an item transporter, filter things out, you know how it goes. It's an automated imbuement chamber. I'll need to grow some chorus, so place chorus flowers in the phytogenic insulator, same as every other time I've done this. This thing is very handy for when you want to make a small amount of some type of plant. Compact, lag free, you can just change things out when you need to, it's great. Okay, next up, some crystallized obsidian. I'll just build a new supercooler and slow melter to deal with this. Not worth the hassle of reconfiguring setups for a single stack of it. And do you really need to see me make more food? Come on. I'll queue up some precision mechanisms, and obviously I have plenty of yellow cake. Oh, do I have plenty of yellow cake. There, that's simple enough. What else is there to say about this? While I feel a need to be comprehensive and cover everything, it's absolutely painful making clips for literally every minute process I do. If you've made it this far in the pack, you can probably figure out how to do this. Whatever, we're getting really close to the end, and more importantly, closer to the end of all the boring stuff. I have plenty of Blizz powder already, so all I need to do is get the Blitz and Basal's powders. I could do that by summoning the mobs. I made data models just in case, but I didn't end up needing them because my looting 10 sword is more than good enough. Gave me all the rods I needed. I just needed to put them in the pulverizer and give them an augment to make sure I got enough dust. Using flint in the bonus slot gives you more bang for your buck. I also need to make a dimensional matrix, and guess what? This is the last thing we need occultism rituals for. Isn't that wonderful? Alright, next quest. Godforged Runes, huh? Well, I already have most of these runes, because you get them from killing the Gaia Guardian. I already have the Godforged Pearls, so now I just need to set up auto-crafting for whatever I don't have. Plenty of Aphrodite Essence, I already got the Globetrotter's Sash components, just need to craft that. And then I need to set up auto-crafting for melodic alloy. And I can auto-craft a few more Gaiasteel as well. So, as before, this requires the advanced mixer to make that melodium, and I'm importing heat once more from the RTGs in the compact machine. Easiest way to keep track of this stuff, I guess. I'm also preparing double what I need. This is so I have enough to make all the stellarium that comes on top of the melodium. Might as well have it ready, right? By now you shouldn't be using yellow cake in your RTGs, it should be all polonium, both for more heat generated and longer burn time. Let's look at the next one, huh? Wixie Charm. Alright, I'll need to craft one of those. Same for a Drigme Charm. I can get Fruit of Grisaia from Guardian of Gaia Predictions. The super charm from Cyclic is just a bunch of smaller charms crafted together. Manipulation Essence is something I've already made and can set up again easily. And then Glacio Ice Shard, or I guess that's not too difficult, and I'll make an easier way of getting it in a moment. Okay, time to set up the builder on Glacio. If I set a big enough area, it'll go mining all of that Ice Shard ore for me. Remember that it only spawns in the top half of the map. Oh yeah, there's still a wandering trader here. You know what? I'll take your entire stock. Yeah, why not have more of my own heads, right? Not like they're expensive at all. Oh yeah, there are also dungeon structures out here. We'll get to those whenever that's updated. Just because this is the final episode of the main guide doesn't mean I'm not going to make more supplementary videos covering these things. So yeah, sit tight, I don't need to engage with these things, but you might. Okay, time to make a Wixie charm. To do that, I'm going to need to cast a spell on a witch when a witch is on less than half health. If only I had a witch spawner that I could abuse to get this. Oh, right, I do. So yeah, let them get down to half health, use the spell. That's a spell with the spell on it, of course. You can use like projectile to spell or something, and that will get you your Wixie shards. Use that to craft it into the Wixie charm. The Wixies are auto-crafters, by the way, or something like that. You can check the Ars book if you really care. Now it's time to make Drigme charms. Drigme charms are actually a kind of mob farm, but I never made one. To summarize it, you need to capture mobs in jars, and having a whole lot of jars means that the Drigmes produce a whole lot of drops. Anyway, you'll need your pestle and mortar, dump a bunch of seeds in, that gives you a seed mixture, and that's pretty much the only hard part in the Drigme charm. Drigme shards come from the Shady Wizard Villager. You might need to level up its trades though. And there you go, that's Wixie charms and Drigme charms out of the way. You don't really need to watch me craft more manipulation essence. Okay, the builder quarry is too slow, so it's digital miner time. The digital miner allows for whitelisted mining. Combine that with speed upgrades and you have pretty much the fastest way to get these ice shards in the game. All you have to do is set the filter, so go into the configuration, open up the menu, put the ice shard ore, specifically Glacios, in the filter, and then set it and save it. Make sure you make the range big, the maximum is 32. That's a radius of 32 blocks in a square, I believe, around the center of the digital miner. You'll need to give it power. It optionally outputs the items to the back, so I guess you could put the task screen behind it or something if you really wanted to. And then I just let it run, preferably far enough away from the quarry so that it mines as many things as it can. And that's about it. This is a much faster way than using that builder quarry. This is it, we're on the final quest. Well, not counting the Pina Colada. We just need to make Stellarium, which comes from our Melodium and Nether Stars, which is very easy to get. And then we need superheated sodium. So what I'm gonna have to do is steal a bit of sodium from the fission reactor. I'll be working with some of the other components that are auto-crafting, of course, as this goes, but they're auto-crafted. Now, the best way to get the superheated sodium out of the reactor requires a bit of fast work. I'm going to need to hook up some tubes to a reactor coolant output, and most importantly and dangerously, I'm going to need to turn off the boiler temporarily. As long as I can extract enough coolant to make sure that I get some in this tank, I should be fine. You don't even need all that much, but of course it's always nice to have more, right? Anyway, that's superheated sodium. You'll need to run it through the rotary concentrator to turn it into a liquid though. Then you can use it in the advanced mixer and turn it into a stellarium alloy. Smelt the stellarium dust and you have your stellarium ingots. I guess there's this gliding thread now, but again, I have all the stuff I need to make it, so what is there to say about it? So close to the end, I can taste it, and yet I know it's not that close. Now I need 1024 singularities. If only I had a way to mass export items into an inventory. Oh, right, I do! It's called the reactor water coolant machine. It pumps out thousands and thousands of buckets into things at a time. So all I need to do is make this matter condenser an output, and there you have it. It'll take in all the water, it'll make all the singularities, and it'll be done before you know it. The other way you could do it is by using the creative lava tank, I think. But we have the system in place already, so why not use it? This is going to be done much faster than the other thing we have to wait on. 5 antimatter pellets. Oh boy, my favorite. By the way, would you like to see code spam? I'm gonna spam it a whole lot more to make this code as long as possible to make the water export as fast as possible. Well, as possible is relative, as much as I really cared to. Alright, you want the spark notes for this? For those of you that don't know, that's an expression that basically just means the summary. So I've reconfigured the microfusion extrapolator to have a second one. They can share walls. There should be plenty of uranium generation. Then I'm using entangle blocks and laser nodes to do all the item input and output, as well as the fluid input. So what this is doing is it's taking all the lead from the left ender chest and putting the uranium in the right as it was before. I put a few overclockers in each. You might want a couple more RTGs, just make sure production can keep up. Right now, the thing that's keeping me up is the liquid void, of course. This is a game of fixing bottlenecks. The lead's the bottleneck, make that faster. The void is the bottleneck, make that faster. Add more machines, add more time torches, add more speed upgrades, you get the point. What's that? Source isn't keeping up. Good thing there was a creative source jar to claim for one of the quests. I believe it was one of the most recent ones. You might also want to make a few more source condensers. I eventually do that, so I'm just going to tell you now so I don't have to show it later. Time to set up the ore laser on Mars. I want to make sure I have more than enough Ostrom to finish this off. It'll be plenty fast enough. Time to overclock the crap out of brine production. I need tons of lithium and tons of sodium. So all of these evaporation plants are working towards making brine at the moment. You can both make the evaporation plant taller and also just set all of them with heat from the RTGs. This should make enough brine to make sodium at a decent rate. The goal here is to keep increasing the reactor's burn rate. Also, it doesn't seem like I got footage for this, but I upgraded the size of the reactor. It now has a 5x5 interior, so that means 13 control rods. I end up with a max burn rate of around 130 by the end of things, though I do cut it back at a point. And even with that massive burn rate, it's still going to take several hours to go through all the fissile fuel. Not enough lead? No problem. I don't need to sift for raw ores at this point, so I'm just going to filter it with a brass sifter. This will allow me to get just raw lead, and it also sifts much more at a time, so it's greatly overclocking it. I will need to put some capacity upgrades onto the pedestal producing gravel though, so that it transfers enough. But one tier 4 capacity upgrade should be plenty. I have 4 fabrication matrices in this clip, but I end up with 6 by the end. I also don't feed them by pattern provider anymore. Except for the first one, which is actually for auto crafting, the rest are running off of an ME interface. By keeping it stocked with the liquid source and pixie dust, I can make sure all of them are producing it at the maximum rate. We're finally overstocking on liquid void, can you believe it? That stuff you need so much of just to get that fissile fuel. Okay, time to activate the fusion reactor again. Let that go. We'll start producing antimatter again. And now we wait, right? No, of course we don't wait. So, when I turn the fusion reactor on, the fission reactor melted down. Why did that happen? Well, I think something happened with the water cooling the reactor. It took from the water it was getting or something, and that didn't go into the boiler. What you need to know is that through this, I somehow wasn't able to support my 130 millibucket per tick burn rate again. 75 works fine though, so after I fixed it, I just used a 75 millibucket burn rate. Obviously, I would recommend doing this at the start. Don't wait until the end to do this. Do it as early as possible so you don't have to wait. But no, I had to do the last quest last and do everything in order. The things I do for quote-unquote production value. You've watched me make antimatter enough. So let's just finish it, shall we? That's the end of the endgame quests. Lovely. Took a lot of making more fissile fuel and making the reactor burn faster so I'd have enough polonium. But I finally did it. Well, I still have one thing left to do. So, what kind of reward did we get? Well, we got a creative motor. You can place it down, it'll have infinite stress units, and you can manually set the speed, much like the rotation speed controller. Yup, this'll be handy even though I don't need it. Well, good thing I just said I didn't need it, right? Oh, and I guess I got the creative ME cell. I think that has infinite storage or something. We already have basically infinite storage, so it's not like it's that useful for me. Nice sentiment though, I guess. Always something to have. Oh, and just to make up for all those times that I fixed the fission reactor in creative mode. By the way, I'm leaving it broken. Yeah, I just decided to auto-craft a bunch of parts, and I'm gonna throw them into the void. There we go, that's refunded, right? I didn't really need to, but you know. Felt bad, I guess. Okay, it's pineapple time. Start by auto-crafting up a bunch of cryotheum. You'll need exactly 51 to finish the pack. Next thing to do is crush up your Eye of the Flugel. That's one of the one-time rewards you get from the Gaia Guardian, so I hope you still have it. Don't die with it. It's a little late to say that, but don't die with it. Now we need a bunch of various types of apples. Some we've already made, some are easy to make. I guess all of them are pretty easy to make. You'll need a few honeyed apples, so make sure you have some spare honey for the job. And all the bonus stuff isn't too hard to get. Then just dump it all in the runic altar, and you'll have your pineapple ready to go. You'll need a total of 5 pineapples. However, I don't want to make more crafting, so instead I'll just grow more. That's the thing you can do with fruits, right? Simply place it on dirt, bone meal it a bunch, and you'll get pineapple chunks. To turn these back into full pineapples, you can put them through the antiprotonic nucleosynthesizer, so make sure you have a few antimatter left over for that. I'd hope that you're watching these full videos before you watch things clip by clip in your survival world. Otherwise it makes it a little confusing following the guide. The next thing I'm going to need is coconuts. You get those from palm saplings. Buy some from the market, then plant them on sand, not dirt. I'm using the plant sower and plant gatherer I had to craft for a quest, and then I gave them some add-ons to make them faster. And finally I put down an item user. This is going to right click for me. In this case it will be with bone meal. That way I keep growing these palm trees as fast as possible. The way it harvests is going to make the coconuts fall though. So to pick them up I have an advanced item collector filtered to coconuts. Then that gets imported into the QIO network. To craft them into coconut chunks you simply need to use a sword. Craft them with the sword and it will make 3 coconut chunks per. You're gonna be here a while though. But that's why we're doing it first. Also just because it's the first thing you need in the crafting process, right? Now what I've made so far is virgin pina colada. We need to add alcohol to it. Well, we have ethanol production already, and it's not like I'm using force-infused biodiesel for much. So I'll mooch off of the ethanol we have. What I have in this drawer is already plenty. Now, of course, beyond that, I'm very short on coconuts. So that's gonna have to farm as time passes. Plenty to do in the meanwhile, of course. Oh, also, for some reason I thought I needed to request in millibuckets. I have to request in buckets. 5 buckets to be exact. The second ingredient is the fruit of Chrysaia. Again, we already have production of that, so I don't really need to go over it. The third ingredient, however, is something we don't have. Chorus tea. We do have chorus fruit, but we also need chorus petals. To get chorus petals, you simply need to bone meal the chorus grass in the end, and then punch it to harvest it. You don't even need shears. I don't know why I thought I did. Not a guaranteed drop though. So yeah, pick up 50 of these and you should be done. Or I think it might actually be 25. Because I think you get 2 chorus tea if you craft it in the pot or whatever. So once you get all of your pedestals, I meant to say petals, I'm gonna keep that one in. Put them in the pot and let it cook. And then once you come back you'll have it all done. Now we have all the cryotheum we need already, because I told you to autocraft 50 of them, so that's done. So next is Resonant Ether, which, guess what? We already have the ability to autocraft, so it's not really that big of an issue. Nothing seems to be that big of an issue for me, because I sure say that a lot. Then we have Charged Snowballs. Put water in the blast chiller with a ball cast and it'll make snowballs. Then put those to the energizing orb. Autocraft up a whole bunch of those, and that's done. Normally they do take a lot of power, but with these spirited energizing rods I have more than enough. No need to go overkill or even upgrade to the max tier energizing rod. Yeah, sad I didn't do that, I guess. And lastly, I just need to kill a whole bunch of wardens. I've been doing that the whole time, just to make sure I keep getting blue hearts and letting the essence restock. Unfortunately, you can't auto-kill them with things that don't give player drops. Like, you can't use the mob crusher even though it kills them instantly, so why bother with that when I can just kill them very quickly with my sword? I have a lot of waiting to do on coconuts anyway, so might as well kill these manually, right? I think it'll take at minimum 4 hits to kill one, so yeah, if I keep getting crits, it'll go by really quickly. Did you know that the Warden's Scream actually pierces armor? See, us modded players don't really care about those vanilla features, so I didn't know that. so the mecha suit doesn't actually protect you. But you know what does protect me? It dying. Alright, coconuts are done. Finally. Now I just need to craft all the pina colada. I am making it make a sword every time it needs to craft something, but why should I care? This is literally the last thing I'm making in the mod pack, so, you know. Well, anyway, we need an assembly line for this, right? I've taken the liberty of pre-preparing it. But of course I wanted to be fancy with this, so I'm using a weighted ejector. The one I've made ahead of time doesn't work though, so I'm going to modify the design a bit. Because we're dealing with more than a few items that don't have regular stack sizes, I've just decided to use export buses for them instead. This will ensure that I don't have it stop in the middle because it runs out of items. It also just looks better than using a hopper. Well, I guess now it has this ugly cable. You can't win, can you? Unbelievable. I forgot about the cup you have to drink it from. Now this isn't just any bamboo mug. No, we can't use regular bamboo sticks. We need to use bamboo sticks that were from blocks treated with fusion fuel. That's what I want imbued in the container for my beverage. Not that this beverage is very good for you in the first place. I'll quickly whip up a chemical injection chamber, put the bamboo in, load it with the DT that I need, and that should be ready to go. Alright, let's get crafting. Throw the bamboo mug on, goes under the spout in each deployer, and then once it reaches the end, it will get flung back. Or it should get flung back. Technical difficulties, please stand by. Alright, there we go, it's working now. I just had to make a belt that doesn't get interrupted when it's arc, and then it takes the chutes back down to the start instead. Think I'll make it a little faster though. Waiting is kinda dull, as you might expect. Not like you need to be watching that. Well, actually, that's probably the last thing that I need to skip, huh? How about we do a base tour now, while it's crafting this final item in our journey. So, here's the place where it all began. The pre-made base by our lovely builder Everlips. Then we move out of there, started building outside. Got some create stuff sitting around. Next is the most important landmark in our base, the World-Height Sugarcane. It's not a real base without World-Height Sugarcane. We have some farms, and then I automated the living rock with my turtle buddy. I'll put him back down, let him, get some work done. Well, I guess I need to give him some infested stone so he can get to work. But other than that, I won't tell him that I'm not going to be using the living rock he's making. Anyway, we move on to the Gaia Arena. It's a Gaia Arena. Spaces for animals, our wonderful mob farms, the place where I did all of my Ars Nouveau crafting with the enchanting apparatus and sometimes imbuement chambers as well. Now we have the lovely pagoda, with all of its low frame rate glory, where we did most of our auto crafting and such. I think I did a good job on it as far as build goes. Then in the back over here, we have ElementalCraft. All that ElementalCraft automation that was probably excessive, but sometimes necessary as well, as I keep circling about. Anyway, let's move on to another area. We have all these awful occultism circles that take up way too much space, and my lovely little ore processing, or ore sifting house I should say. And we have our QIO drives, all full of junk, using up all of those item types with enchanted fishing rods from the fisher. And then we have our nuclear area, where we did all of our fission and stuff, and the fission reactor that is broken and I'm not fixing, the turbine, the SPS, the fusion reactor, all the fuel generation underneath, and then we have going around the back all the water, and then all this inventory cable. Oh, and that Zen garden, that was a nice little thing, right? Then we have the processing underneath, the actual ore processing, our netherite magnets, electromagnetic coils, and then we have the ElementalCraft biodiesel setup, as well as a pressure chamber. Then we go around here and we have the golden power source and the liquid force that was being generated, as well as oil processing of several different types. I never ended up making the third type of oil processing, but that's fine. Then we go over here and we have our wither automation and the P farm, of course. How could we forget this P farm with overcomplicated redstone? The Tanya area, the A2 auto crafting. You look up and down here and we see that we had that mob farm from the start, where we had the Reaper generator at the beginning. And then we go up and we look at our thermal evaporation plants. And most importantly, oh, looks like auto-crafting's done, we see that we have this wonderful set of fabrication matrices, and all this auto-crafting, phenolic resin, so much to talk about, not really any of it that's important individually, but as a whole, this made a full base. And finally, we go all the way over to the other end of the new platform, where we automated the endgame stuff of this episode. I did all that in one take, by the way. Due to the nature of showcasing things, it's much faster if I just watch the footage and talk, as opposed to my usual method of thinking of something to talk about and making a script in my head for it. And as we let this finish up, let's remove some of those quest lines that were being troublesome, you know? Those ones that I couldn't complete for whatever arbitrary reason of it not working. Yeah, going into editing mode. Which means you see more quest lines that were never actually implemented. Oops. Those aren't important though. Let's just get rid of those annoying quest lines, right? It's not cheating because I've already done all the quests in them anyway. So we can delete Ars Nouveau, we can delete Monster Hunter, and we can delete Mob Farming and you. Because who cares about that junk, right? Once we get all those out of the way, we've finally completed 100% of the quests in FTB Sky's Expert. Well, as soon as I pick up the Pina Colada. I guess I'll have to talk to Sayrith and see what the issue is with those. The Ars Nouveau in particular crashed my game when I tried to complete it, and I don't know why. Hopefully, by the time you guys get there, it'll be done. I mean, I'm probably still within the first 50 people to beat the pack. It's only been about 2 months since release, after all. But, yeah, what a fun pack this was. I really enjoyed it. And I don't say that just because I'm a member of FTB. After all, I wasn't the main creative force behind this one. Of course I was for my own mod pack, but that's explained in it being my own mod pack. I was a beta tester, so I've played the early game 3 times now, and I've played up to Mars at least 1 time before this. Would I recommend it? Of course. Though I guess that doesn't really mean much to any of you because you're watching the ending of the final episode, and so you've watched all of my previous episodes most likely. Except because this is the final episode, it's inevitably going to get more views than some of the videos that came before it. That's just how things are with the analytics, I guess. Only so much I care about those when I upload at 2 in the morning or something every time. I upload when it's done, not for traffic. And I guess now it's entering the final loop of it being processed. Yay! I really am grateful for you guys for watching this video series. I hope it's been helpful. It is supposed to be a guide. So let's take off the weighted ejector and catch the Pina Colada when it's all done. And there you have it. Pack complete. That is a load off of my shoulders. While I do greatly enjoy making these videos, it does take a while and a lot of time. I'm not always going to have the surplus of time to make these that I have right now. All quests are complete. How about we take off the helmet and enjoy this drink, huh? Let's look face to face for a change. Well, I guess we do that at the end of every episode, huh? Or, well, my Minecraft face to your face that's on your computer screen. Whatever, you get the point. Let's claim literally all those quest rewards I've been ignoring. Yeah, look at all this junk that I don't need. You know, it would have been pretty funny if I just claimed it all over the void. Hindsight. I guess it's not sunset, so we'll just have to watch the sunrise from the top of my pagoda. Yup, time to drink this Pina Colada. Delicious, am I right? Wait a minute. I'm not an alcoholic.